The loss and the replacement. The battlefield was silent now, but Commander Lyra still heard echoes of the screams. The smoke had cleared, the fire had burned out, and the war machines of the enemy had pulled back, but her mind was trapped in that last moment. She saw her partner, Kyle, falling. His eyes had met hers for a single heartbeat before the blast consumed him. He had been her closest bond, her anchor in war, and the one who always stood by her side. Now he was gone, and the space inside her chest felt empty, colder than the void of the stars. Lyra stood alone in the metallic hallway of the alien cruiser, her hand gripping the edge of a console as if she needed the weight to stop herself from drifting into despair. Around her, other soldiers whispered, watching from the corners of their eyes. They all knew Kyle's death was a wound not only to her heart but also to the mission. She had been paired with him for years. Together they had been unstoppable. Without him, she felt broken and vulnerable. When Fleet Command called her into the chamber, she already knew what they would say, but hearing it still burned like fire. "Commander Lyra," the Admiral's voice was firm, "you have been assigned a new partner, a human." Her head lifted sharply, eyes flashing with anger. "A human?" The word came out like poison. "You cannot replace Kyle with one of them." The Admiral did not flinch. "You will accept this order. Humanity has proven its value. This soldier has been chosen for his discipline and survival skills. His name is Ethan Cole." Lyra turned sharply and walked out without another word. Inside, she burned. Humans were new to the galactic warfront. They were unpredictable, reckless, and loud. To give her a human replacement felt like an insult to Kyle's memory. She swore she would never trust him, never accept him, never allow him to take Kyle's place. The first time she saw Ethan was inside the docking bay. He stood there in his human armor, simpler than alien technology but reinforced with human ingenuity. His eyes were steady, his face calm. He did not smile, did not salute, did not try to speak. He only watched her with quiet determination. "You," Lyra said coldly, walking up to him, "will stay out of my way. I don't need you. I don't want you. Do you understand?" Ethan nodded once, saying nothing. His silence annoyed her even more. She expected arrogance, some attempt to prove himself. Instead, he acted like stone, refusing to break. The days that followed were heavy. Lyra avoided him during drills, ignored his presence on the ship, and carried out missions as if she were alone. Ethan never complained. He studied her moves, shadowed her steps, and followed orders without question. Still, she hated every second of it. She thought of Kyle's laugh, Kyle's sharp words during battle, Kyle's trust, and then looked at this quiet human who had dared to stand where Kyle once stood. The first mission they flew together nearly ended in disaster. Raiders ambushed their patrol ship in an asteroid field. Lyra's instincts told her to push forward, to fight head-on like she and Kyle had always done. Ethan spoke then, his voice calm but firm. "We need to retreat into the shadow of the rocks. They'll overextend." "I don't take orders from you," she snapped, throwing the ship forward. The enemy fire rained down, shaking the vessel. Systems sparked. Alarms screamed. Lyra fought desperately, refusing to follow Ethan's plan, until a blast sent her tumbling across the cockpit. For a moment she saw death rushing at her, a beam of light aimed at the hull. Ethan moved fast. His hands slammed on the controls, shifting the ship just in time. The beam grazed them, scorching metal, but missing the core. He pushed the engines hard, weaving between asteroids, using the field to block enemy fire exactly as he had predicted. With a final burst of speed, he escaped the ambush, leaving the raiders behind. The silence in the cockpit was sharp. Lyra pulled herself up, fury boiling inside. "Don't think this means anything," she said bitterly. "You saved the ship, yes, but you're not Kyle. You will never be him." Ethan said nothing. His jaw tightened, but he did not argue. He only returned to the controls, steady and focused. That silence, that patience, only made her angrier. She wanted him to fight back, to shout, to prove her right about humans being arrogant. Instead, he accepted her hate like it was a weight he had chosen to carry. That night, Lyra sat alone in her quarters, staring at the empty bunk that once belonged to KL. Her chest ached. The war had taken her partner, her trust, and her heart, and now it had given her a human replacement. She swore again that she would never allow Ethan Cole into that space. Never. But deep inside, a small, unwanted thought crept into her mind. He had saved her life today, not because of orders, not because of duty. He had done it with calm eyes and steady hands. And though she hated it, part of her wondered if she had judged him too soon. For now, she pushed the thought away, gripping Kael's old insignia in her hand. The war was not over. She would fight on, and Ethan Cole, human or not, would have to learn his place, or die trying. The Cold Alliance. The days after the ambush passed like slow poison. Commander Lyra refused to look at Ethan unless duty forced her. She trained with soldiers of her own race, ignoring the human shadow who followed her through every drill, every meeting, every mission. To her, he was nothing but an unwanted reminder of what she had lost. Ethan never argued. He stayed calm, silent, and focused. He moved with quiet precision, watching her style of combat, learning her instincts without a word. Where other humans laughed, joked, or boasted, he carried himself like a stone wall. To the crew, his discipline was admirable. To Lyra, it was infuriating. She wanted him to make a mistake to prove her right, but he never did. Their next assignment came sooner than expected. Fleet Command sent them to escort a convoy through the ruined edges of a nebula. Raiders had been active there, striking civilian ships, leaving only wreckage behind. Lyra and Ethan were ordered to patrol ahead of the fleet, a two-person scouting mission. She protested, "I don't need him. I can run this mission alone." The Admiral's voice cut sharp. "Orders stand. You will take Cole." And so she did. The small patrol craft hummed as it cut through the thick clouds of the nebula. Lightning sparked within the gases, shadows moving like ghosts outside the windows. Lyra sat at the pilot's chair, hands on the controls. Ethan sat beside her, silent, reading the scanners. The air between them was colder than the void. Minutes stretched. Lyra finally broke the silence, her voice sharp as a blade. "Say what you want to say, human. I know you're waiting." Ethan glanced at her, then back at the screen. "I'm not here to replace him. I'm here so you don't die." His words hit her like a strike. She gripped the controls tighter. "You think I need saving? You think humans are heroes?" "No," Ethan said quietly. "I think you're tired of carrying this alone." Before she could answer, the scanners screamed. Red dots appeared across the screen. Raiders, dozens of them. The nebula lit up with fire as enemy ships descended like vultures. Lyra pulled the patrol craft hard to the side, dodging beams of plasma. "Weapons online!" she barked, already firing. Her shots cut two raiders apart, but more closed in. Ethan moved fast, activating countermeasures, guiding the ship between storm clouds of gas. "We can't fight them head-on," he said. "They're pulling us into the core. It's a trap." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Then we break the trap." She pushed the ship forward, charging into the swarm. The raiders opened fire. Plasma burned across the hull. Alarms howled. The ship shook under the force. Lyra's hands blurred across the controls, but there were too many. The nebula's magnetic storms blocked long-range support from the fleet. They were alone. Ethan leaned closer, calm even as fire shook the cockpit. "We have one chance. There's a gravity pocket forming ahead. If we dive into it, the storm will tear their formation apart. But if we miscalculate, we'll be crushed." Lyra glared. "That's suicide." Ethan's voice stayed steady. "It's survival. Trust me." For a moment she froze. Cale had always been the one to guide her in impossible moments. Now this human dared to stand in his place. A plasma beam tore past the window, nearly splitting the ship. She had no choice. Grinding her teeth, she pulled the ship into the gravity pocket. The patrol craft screamed as pressure gripped its hull. Metal bent, systems sparked, alarms blared. Outside, the raiders followed, caught in the sudden pull. The storm ripped them apart. Ships slammed into rocks. Fire bloomed across the nebula, their formation shattered. Ethan shouted, "Now!" and released counter-thrusters. The patrol craft broke free, barely escaping as the pocket collapsed behind them. Silence returned, heavy and sharp. The scanners cleared. The raiders were gone. The convoy was safe. Lyra's hands shook as she pulled the ship back to stable course. For the first time since Kael's death, she felt something she hated, relief caused not by her own skills, but by Ethan Cole. She turned to him, her voice low but filled with venom. "Don't think this means anything. You saved us, yes, but you are still not Kael. You will never be Kael." Ethan's jaw tightened. He met her gaze, his eyes steady, calm and unbroken. "I know. I don't want to be him. I just want to keep you alive." The words struck deeper than she wanted. She turned away, staring out at the endless stars. Her chest ached with anger, grief, and something she refused to name. Later, when the mission ended and the convoy reached safety, the crew praised their survival. To them, Lyra and Ethan were a perfect team, but inside she carried the storm. She told herself she would never trust him, never let him close. And yet, that night, when she lay awake in her quarters, Kael's insignia in her hand, she heard Ethan's voice again in her mind. Not trying to replace, not trying to command, only offering quiet strength. For the first time, Lyra felt unsure. And in war, doubt was more dangerous than any enemy. Cracks in the wall. The convoy mission was behind them, but the tension between Commander Lyra and Ethan Cole only grew sharper. To the crew, they looked like a team forged in fire. To Lyra, it felt like chains pulling her toward something she didn't want to accept. Every word Ethan spoke, every calm decision he made, reminded her that he was still there, breathing in the space where Kael once stood. Yet war did not wait for grief. Orders came again, this time for a mission deep inside enemy territory. The enemy had taken control of a derelict alien outpost, one filled with old weapons and forgotten technology. Fleet Command needed Lyra and Ethan to infiltrate, gather data, and destroy the site before it could be used against them. When the order arrived, Lyra felt unease. She would never admit it aloud, but the nebula battle had left her shaken, and now the idea of walking into enemy hands with only a human by her side twisted her gut. Still, she put on her armor and prepared. The shuttle landed on the outpost surface under a shroud of darkness. The air was thin, the sky cracked with lightning from the unstable atmosphere. The metal ruins loomed like bones of a forgotten giant. Lyra stepped out first, rifle in hand, her every movement sharp and silent. Ethan followed close, scanning the terrain with human eyes that never seemed to blink. Inside the ruins, shadows shifted. Old walls groaned with the weight of time. The halls smelled of rust and death. Their footsteps echoed too loud in Lyra's ears. She signaled silence, and Ethan obeyed without question. They reached the control chamber at the heart of the outpost. Strange glyphs glowed faintly across the walls, traces of the technology left behind. As Lyra connected her scanner, Ethan stood guard. For a moment the silence felt calm, almost safe. Then the trap snapped shut. Doors slammed down, metal barriers locking them inside. Enemy soldiers poured from hidden passages, weapons raised. Plasma fire lit the chamber in deadly flashes. Lyra spun, firing at the closest raider, her shots cutting him down. But more came, their numbers overwhelming. Ethan shouted, pulling her toward cover. Beams scorched the air, exploding against the walls. Lyra gritted her teeth. "We can't hold this position." "Then we move," Ethan barked, tossing a smoke charge that filled the chamber with thick gray fog. Through the haze, he pulled her toward a broken passageway. Plasma beams tore through the smoke, grazing close. One struck the wall beside Lyra, shattering stone and throwing her to the ground. She cried out as pain shot through her leg. Blood pooled beneath her armor. She tried to stand, but her leg buckled. The enemy closed in. Ethan was at her side instantly. He dropped to one knee, ripping off a piece of his own armor plating and pressing it hard against her wound. "Stay awake," he said firmly, eyes locked on hers. "I've got you." She tried to push him away. "Leave me. Complete the mission." But Ethan's voice was sharp as steel. "No, we do this together, or not at all." He lifted her onto his shoulder, carrying her through the broken passage as plasma fire rained down. His movements were heavy but precise, each step measured, each turn chosen with care. Shielded her with his own body, taking the risk without hesitation. They crashed into a collapsed chamber, the ceiling half caved in. Dust rained down as explosions echoed behind them. Lyra struggled to breathe, her chest tight with both pain and rage. Why was he doing this? Why risk everything for someone who despised him? Through the dust, more raiders appeared. Ethan set her down gently behind a pillar. His rifle came up, his voice calm but firm. "Cover me if you can. If not, just stay down." He stood tall, human armor battered, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Then he charged. Plasma beams sliced past him, but he moved with raw instinct, weaving through fire, striking with precision. His shots dropped enemy after enemy, his body refusing to fall even as the chamber shook. Lyra, leaning against the pillar, forced her rifle up despite the pain. She fired beside him, her shots joining his. For the first time, they fought not as enemies, not as strangers, but as a single unit, moving in rhythm, their weapons roaring together. The last raider fell. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of fire. Ethan lowered his weapon, chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face. He turned back to her, his eyes steady, his voice calm. "You alive?" She stared at him, breathless. He had risked his life for her, shielded her, carried her, fought like a man who refused to die, not for himself, but for her. Her voice cracked. "Why? Why would you do this, after everything I said to you?" Ethan wiped the blood from his brow. "Because it's not about me. It's about the mission. It's about us making it home alive." The words struck her deeper than any wound. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time saw not a replacement, not an insult to Kael's memory, but a soldier standing unbroken beside her. They patched her wound, finished planting charges in the outpost, and escaped into the storm as the facility collapsed in fire behind them. As they flew back, silence hung heavy in the shuttle. Lyra stared at the stars. Kael's face still burned in her heart. But now another face lingered too. The human who had risked everything, not for glory, not for pride, but simply so she would not fall. And for the first time, a crack appeared in the wall of her hate. The ultimate betrayal. The destruction of the alien outpost should have been a victory, but for Commander Lyra it felt like a shadow creeping closer. She told herself the cracks in her hatred were nothing, that Ethan was still only a tool, a human soldier placed beside her against her will. Yet every time she closed her eyes, she saw him carrying her through fire, felt the weight of his hand pressing on her wound, remembered the steady calm in his eyes when chaos burned around them. But war left no space for reflection. Fleet Command ordered them back into duty almost instantly. This time, their mission was critical. Protect a rare alien artifact being transported through war-torn space. The artifact was said to hold technology powerful enough to shift the balance of the war. If it fell into enemy hands, entire colonies would burn. The mission seemed simple: escort the convoy, defend the artifact. But unease gnawed at Lyra. She sensed something wrong in the way the Admiral spoke, in the rushed orders, in the silence of the other officers. Ethan noticed it too. "They're not telling us everything," he said quietly as they prepared. Lyra shot him a sharp look. "Stay focused, human. Don't think beyond your orders." But deep down, she agreed. The convoy entered a narrow sector of space known as the Shattered Belt, a field of broken moons and drifting stone. Their patrol craft slipped between the massive rocks, shadows hiding dangers in every corner. Ethan kept his eyes on the scanners, his jaw tight. "We're being watched." Lyra's pulse quickened. "By who?" The answer came in fire. Dozens of enemy ships burst from behind the moons, ambushing the convoy. Plasma lit the void. Ships erupted into flame. The artifact's carrier was hit hard, its shield shattering. Chaos tore through the fleet as screams filled the comms. "Stay with the carrier!" Lyra barked, diving the patrol craft into the storm. Ethan fired countermeasures, guiding their ship in a deadly dance through fire. But then something worse happened. A coded transmission slipped across the comms, one only officers were supposed to hear. Lyra's blood froze as she decoded it. The betrayal wasn't from outside, it was from within. The convoy's own escort ships turned, weapons locking on the artifact carrier. Fleet allies, her own kind, had betrayed them. The artifact was the target and the convoy was nothing but bait. Her voice broke with rage. "Traitors!" The enemy and the defectors swarmed together, tearing into the carrier. Lyra's hands shook on the controls. "We can't hold them all." Ethan's eyes hardened. "Then we don't. We get to the artifact." The carrier's hull split open, flames bursting into the void. The artifact floated free, glowing with alien energy. Both sides charged toward it. Lyra's instincts screamed to retreat. This was madness, but Ethan pushed forward, cutting through fire like a blade. Explosions tore the rocks apart as they closed in. Suddenly, a massive blast struck their patrol craft, sending them spinning into a broken moon surface. The ship slammed down, metal screaming. Lyra was thrown from her seat, her head cracking against the console. Her vision blurred. Through the haze, she saw enemy raiders closing in on the artifact. She tried to rise, but her body refused. Then Ethan's hand gripped her shoulder. His voice was firm, unshaken. "Stay here. I'll get it." Her eyes widened. "That's suicide." He met her gaze, determination burning in his human eyes. "Better me than them." Before she could stop him, he grabbed his rifle, kicked the hatch open, and ran into the chaos. Plasma fire rained down. Explosions shattered the rocks. He leapt between debris, his armor battered, his body a small figure against the storm of war. But he kept moving, never stopping, never breaking. Through the smoke, Lyra saw him dive for the artifact, shielding it with his body as raiders fired from all sides. He fought like a man possessed, his rifle spitting fire, his voice silent, but his resolve louder than any roar. She forced herself up, blood dripping from her brow, fury tearing through her chest. She couldn't let him die. Not here, not now. Dragging herself to the weapons console, she fired the patrol ship's cannons, tearing through enemy ships. Her shots ripped traitors apart, her screams echoing in the empty cockpit. "No more! No more betrayal!" Her fire cleared a path. Ethan, bloodied and gasping, lifted the artifact with both hands and ran back toward the ship. Plasma beams grazed him. Explosions knocked him down. But still he rose, step after step, refusing to fall. At last he reached the hatch. Lyra grabbed his arm, dragging him inside as the artifact pulsed between them. The hatch sealed, the engines roared, and they blasted away from the collapsing battlefield. Inside, Ethan collapsed against the floor, armor scorched, body trembling. The artifact glowed beside him like a living star. Lyra dropped to her knees, her chest heaving. For the first time, she couldn't hold back the words. "You're insane. You should be dead. You saved it. You saved us." Ethan coughed, blood on his lips, but his eyes still held that calm fire. "I told you. It's not about me. It's about the mission. About making sure you live to fight another day." Lyra stared at him, her hands shaking. She had despised him, cursed him, sworn never to accept him. But here he was, bleedens, broken, and still unyielding, because he refused to let her fall. And in that moment, something inside her shattered. The hatred she clung to felt hollow. The wall she had built cracked wide open. But before she could speak, alarms blared again. The artifact pulsed brighter, unstable in the hull, and somewhere in the shadows of the battlefield, more enemies were coming. The war was not over. Their fight was only beginning. The sacrifice and the realization. The artifact glowed in the hold of the battered patrol ship, its light pulsing like the heartbeat of a star. Commander Lyra stared at it, unease twisting in her chest. It was not a weapon of metal or fire. It was alive. Every pulse filled the air with a strange hum, as if it breathed. And with each beat, the alarm screamed louder. Ethan Cole, slumped against the wall with burns across his armor, forced himself up. Blood ran down his face, but his eyes stayed steady. "It's unstable," he said. "If it detonates here, the fleet, the colony, everything nearby will be destroyed." Lyra's throat tightened. "Then we contain it. Fleet Command must have protocols." Ethan shook his head. "Command sent us here to fail. The betrayal wasn't just those escorts, it was the higher chain. They wanted this artifact captured. They wanted us to die with it." The words sliced through her. She had suspected betrayal, but hearing it aloud made her blood burn. She had lost Kale to this war, fought with hatred in her heart, and now learned that the war itself was poisoned from the top. Outside, the scanners wailed. More enemy ships closed in, drawn by the artifact's energy. They didn't have hours. They didn't even have minutes. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but heavy. "The artifact can be destroyed, but only manually. Someone has to stay behind to trigger the overload." Lyra froze, her body trembling. She already knew what he was about to say. He met her eyes. "It has to be me." "No," she snapped instantly. Her voice shook with rage, fear, and something she refused to name. "I won't let another partner die in front of me. Not again. Not you." Ethan gave a faint, tired smile. "I'm not your partner. Not the way he was. I'm just a human who refuses to let you carry this alone." The words tore through her like a blade. For so long she had despised him, called him weak, cursed his presence. But he had carried her when she fell, shielded her with his body, fought until his blood painted the floor. He had never asked for thanks. He had never tried to replace Kyle. He had only tried to keep her alive. The ship shook violently as enemy fire struck the hull. Flames licked the corridor, sparks raining down. Lyra grabbed Ethan's arm, her voice desperate. "If you do this, you'll die. And I can't." Her words broke, the weight of grief and truth crashing together. Ethan placed his hand gently over hers. His voice was steady, softer than she had ever heard. "You can. Because you'll live. You'll fight. That's how Kale would want it. That's how I want it." Tears she had buried for months finally broke free. For the first time, she did not see a human replacement. She saw Ethan Cole, a man who had stood in fire for her, a soldier who had given everything without asking for anything. He stepped toward the artifact, pulling off his damaged helmet. The glow bathed his face, making him look like a figure carved from light and shadow. "When it overloads, get as far as you can. Don't look back." "No," she whispered again, her voice cracking. "There has to be another way. There has to." "Lyra." His voice was firm but gentle. "Trust me." The two words hit harder than any order. She had never trusted him. She had never wanted to. But now, as the stars shook outside and the artifact pulsed like a dying sun, she realized she already did. She forced herself into the cockpit, her hands trembling on the controls. Behind her, Ethan placed his hands on the artifact's core. The hum grew louder, filling the ship like a living scream. Through the comm, his voice came one last time. "I didn't want to replace him. I just didn't want you to be alone." The words shattered her heart. She slammed the engines forward, the patrol craft bursting through the burning wreckage, speeding into the dark void. Behind her, the artifact's glow turned into a blinding light. A heartbeat later, the outpost, the raiders, and the entire battlefield vanished in a silent explosion that lit the stars like dawn. The patrol craft spun, systems failing, alarms shrieking, but it held together long enough to clear the blast. Lyra sat frozen at the controls, tears streaming down her face. For the first time since Kyle's death, she let herself sob, not only for the partner she had lost, but for the human who had given her something new: respect, strength, and a reminder that even in war, trust could be born from ashes. When rescue finally came, the fleet found her alone, holding Kael's insignia in one hand and Ethan's scorched helmet in the other. She did not speak of betrayal. She did not speak of loss. She spoke only of courage. And when they asked her what humanity had given the galaxy, she gave them her answer with a voice steady as stone: hope,